We're talking to Wade Burgess, Director of LinkedIn, who's given a fabulous presentation today at the Social Media and Mobile Engagement Directors Forum. And for those guys that were unable to join us today, Wade is kindly going to give us a brief synopsis on really what his key messages were today. Thanks, Wade.
Sure, I'll do my very best. So I think one of the first things we wanted to talk about was the evolution of sort of a broader conversation of where Web 1.0 and Web 2.0 have gone, and inside of Web 2.0, social media itself, and inside of social media, then I narrowed my conversation down to LinkedIn and how to most effectively use LinkedIn as a professional and also as an organization. So, and simple migration from Web 1.0 to 2.0, I think the summary of that could probably be best noted as saying one way. So Web 1.0 is all about presenting information to people. Web 2.0 then has a lot to do with the interaction, the two-way conversations and communities of people. Inside of Web 2.0, then there is a component of that that's known by many things, but we'll say social media. And in social media, there are many, many different properties. And so I think it's important to recognize that you have an individual presence, and that you also now have to start thinking about an organizational or a corporate presence. And so inside of that, most people at the individual level think about themselves in multiple ways. I'll simplify that down and say that there's a professional component and there's a personal component. So some people actually manage those as one, but many of us have a presence that we want to deliver professionally. So for example, when you come to a conference like this, when you do business, you end up presenting yourself in a way. You may dress in a certain way, you may communicate and speak in a certain way, and you may have specific topics that are oriented to that conversation. And then on the social side, you may dress, speak, and interact differently because of the level of communication. And so an example of that would be I manage my professional identity on LinkedIn, and I manage my social identity on Facebook. And I have really two totally different communities there, and I interact in different ways. Now, one of the interesting things that I didn't talk about today that I didn't have time to get to is there are many other properties out there. And so, for example, I personally use Twitter for both. And so Twitter is a little bit of a triangulation between those two for myself as a broadcast medium for things that either my personal or professional network may find interesting. So inside of LinkedIn itself, one of the things that I recommended was authenticity. Making sure that who you are as a professional, that your brand, what you've built your entire life, from university forward, is consistent with the way you represent yourself online. So that's authenticity. In other words, it's who you are. And it also is connecting with those people who you know and trust and relate with. So this isn't about, social media isn't necessarily this big new thing out here. It's simply a way of extending who you are into a different set of interaction and communities. So I recommend that you take who you are and extend it in a very authentic way, and that you also communicate in a way that's authentic to you. So there isn't a right or wrong, it's about who you are and extending that. I think it's also important then to think about if that's true, and how can I add value to the community instead of just take from it. And hopefully your professional brand isn't one of being selfish and being a taker. Hopefully it's also about being a giver. And so the community that you interact with, in this case LinkedIn, ask questions, answer questions in a way that helps other people. Recommend people that you know and trust and have done business with. And solve problems for them and help them move forward. Maybe you're going to help them in their career to navigate a new opportunity. Maybe you're going to help them with a business challenge. Maybe you're simply going to, the content you consume online, you find really interesting things that might be helpful and interesting to your network, share it with them. Go out there and interact and share it with them. So I also think about, so that's as an individual, is extend yourself, be authentic, and be a giver. As an organization, it's very important to start thinking about delivering and creating a presence. So much like we thought about with the internet, at one point it was, should we have this web thing representing our company? So you created a website. And then you started to do more and more things, and you started to get specific about different components of your business, doing things on the web that enabled your business. Now the social media communities are also an area that you need to exist in. So your organization should likely have a presence on Facebook. It should likely have a presence on LinkedIn. It should likely have a presence on Twitter and other properties that are relevant to your business. should likely have a YouTube channel. So inside of those, the same principles apply. Authenticity means your organization, you want to extend your brand consistently into those communities. So at the simplest level, that starts out with exist. So what I mean by existing is have a Facebook page, have a LinkedIn company page. Inside of that company page, make sure you use something that's relatively new, which is the products and services tab. And if you're using products and services, engage your best customers to interact with that and to recommend those products, because that goes out virally to their network and so on, and you create this buzz around your products and your services in a new community that maybe you weren't involved in before. And it's going to create new opportunities for it. I would also recommend if you are growing as a company or you're looking at good professionals, you would also create a career tab. So in the career tab, you can talk about the things that you're doing as a company, the type of professionals you want to represent, and have your employment brand represented. So you should have a presence and exist in these properties. And then I think it's important to get to the next step beyond existing. You need to decide whether you're going to commit resources. Committing resources means, are you not going to just push information out, but are you going to listen? Are you going to interact with your customers? Are you going to interact with your employees and the candidates and your alumni? And are you going to work with your peers and your vendors? So you need to commit resources to it. And so the last note that I'll wrap up on is there's an acceptable, I guess there's a minimum level of commitment to succeed at anything. And the analogy I used was, if you go to work out and exercise and you go to the gym once a month, that doesn't meet the minimum commitment to actually have any results. You'll simply be sore, but you won't have any results. You need to get to a minimum commitment to succeed. And as it relates to these various properties, you need to decide if you're going to listen and interact, that you commit the resources, meaning basically people and time and thought towards succeeding in these areas. If you're going to listen to your customers, for example, on Twitter, you need to make sure that you're not only listening, but you're going to interact with them and you're going to actually solve their problems. Otherwise, you're going to create a scenario that you're not a responsive organization. So hopefully that's somewhat helpful. Thinking about yourself as an individual, brand yourself well. Think about your company as an organization, have a presence. And the next step then as your company is start to interact. I would say the best recommendation I can make is find companies you want to emulate, those that are doing things well, learn from them, be willing to be a student of this new area, and I think it creates an entirely new opportunity, a new world to engage in that maybe you haven't had a chance to before. You can extend your brand for yourself personally and for your organization in new and unique ways. Hopefully that's helpful.